Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're in Judges chapter 14. We're going to be starting in verse 5 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, last lesson we saw in the first part of chapter 14, Samson goes to Timnath. He sees a pretty young woman and he wants to marry her. He goes and he tells his mother and father to make the arrangements. They want to know how come he's not interested in a Jewish girl, especially a girl of the Danites. And he said, no, I want her. She's the one I want. She pleases me. And so, again, it says here in verse 4 that it was of the Lord. And again, I can't believe that God overlooked this part that she was a Philistine, but that God used it anyways. Although God let Samson make the choice. He should have made a better choice and not gone with the Philistine woman, but he made a choice, and God, from that point, he began to use it for his purpose. Now, let's read verses 5 through 7. And it says here, then went Samson down and his father and his mother to Timnath, and they came to the vineyard of Timnath, and behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him as he would have rent a kid, and he had nothing in his hand. But he told not his father or his mother what he had done. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. Now, Samson and his father and his mother, they go to Timnath to make arrangements for this wedding. But it seems that on their way down, Samson leaves his father and mother to continue going to Timnath on this road, while he takes a little bit of a different route. Now, Samson comes to a vineyard. Now, we do not know if Samson knew about this vineyard or not. It seems likely that he did know about this vineyard that he's heading towards. And possibly he purposed to go that way to eat some grapes. Now again, this was against his Nazirite vow, and we see that in Numbers chapter 6 and verse 3. He wasn't supposed to eat grapes, dried grapes, wet grapes, any kind of grapes. Wasn't supposed to eat anything from the vine. A lion is at these vineyards and is set out to come against him. Some scholars believe that this was just a test of Samson's strength to give him more confidence when he goes up against the Philistines. This is what some of the commentators that I looked at thought, that this was just a test of his strength. But a few scholars believe that the lion was set as a warning for Samson to stay away from the vineyard. Samson had turned away from his mother and father and was now out on his own. When people leave the covering of their spiritual parents in the Lord, not if your parents, if you have mother and father and they're both saved, or one or the other is saved, they are your covering. They're your spiritual covering. But if your mother and father are not saved, then God will provide for you a spiritual mother and father in the Lord to be a covering for you. Now, your pastor, if you're a woman, your pastor is your covering. So God provides coverings for believers. And Samson left his covering, and it's like a Christian who leaves their spiritual covering and goes out on their own. They do not know that the lions are hiding in the forbidden vineyards of this world. When people leave their covering, they think everything is all right. They think they can handle life themselves. I don't need my spiritual mother and father anymore. I don't need a spiritual covering. Well, we all do. We all do. And when we leave that covering, we forget that there's lions in the vineyard of life out there. If Samson had not gone to the vineyard, then possibly he may not have violated his Nazirite vow a second time by coming in contact with this vineyard here. Both killing the lion and then eating honey from the carcass. Now, let's look at several lessons that we can learn from Samson meeting this lion. Now, the lion came, number one, he came unexpectedly. People that take the wrong path in life never expect to meet with danger. Therefore, they don't make provisions for these dangers. They only see what they want to see. A bright future, making lots of money, getting married and having lots of children. And they are devastated when a lion appears in their life to mess everything up. Number two, the lion came when Samson's journey in life was very exciting. Samson was on his own way to obtain a wife. And many people today, they are on their own way to start their own business, or they're having a child, or graduating from college, or getting a promotion at work. And then the lion comes and disturbs their plans. Number three, the lion came when Samson was on his way to sin. As a Christian who is serving God, we can expect opposition, but a person who is on their way heading towards sin, as Samson was, the sin was taking of the vineyard and eating the grapes from the vineyard. When he was heading towards sin, they need to expect a lion in the way. Listen, when a Christian sets out and they've determined in their mind that they're going to do this sin, they need to expect a lion in the way. Because this is God's warning to people, to Christians. Don't do it. Don't do it. The vineyard and the Philistine woman were great temptations for Samson. But there was a lion hiding. He was unseen and unexpected to a young man who was living according to that which was right in his own eyes. The pleasurable things of this world all have their hidden lions, their hidden dangers that will help to destroy a person's soul. In verse 7, it says that Samson talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson very much. Now, it is possible that this is the only time that Samson talked with the woman before the wedding. Samson was influenced by his eyes and by his ears. Her beauty in his eyes and the sound of her voice captured his heart. The Nazirite vow and the ways of God did not have a chance in the heart of Samson, because his heart was already smitten by her looks and by her voice. and God's Nazarite vow, and it didn't stand a chance against her beauty and her voice. With many people, even Christians, it's the lust of the eyes and the tickling of the ears that start them down a dangerous road in life. A road that may end in disaster if not caught soon enough. Now, let's read verses 8 and 9. And it says, "And after a time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands and went on eating, and came to his father and mother, and he gave them, and they did eat. But he told them not that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion." Now, between verses 7 and 8, there is a considerable amount of time that passes. Enough time for the carcass to be nothing but a skeleton. Bees will not make a hive in rotting flesh, but they will make a hive in dry bones. The amount of time that could have taken place is possibly even up to a year. Remember, Esther and King Ahasuerus, I believe, Ahasuerus or Artaxerxes, she remember when the king set out to find a queen, there were all these young virgins brought to the king's palace, and they had to spend 1 year of cleansing themselves, and before they could go and spend the night with the king and become one of his concubines or one of his wives. So it's possible that it took even up to a year between verses 7 and verse 8. But personally, I don't think it was that long. I think it was several months. Now, either through curiosity or gloating, Samson decided to stop by and see if the lion's body was still there. He is surprised to see that it is not only still there, but some bees now, they have conveniently made a hive with honey in it inside the carcass. Now, Samson takes some of the honey and he eats some of it. Then he gives a portion of it to his father and mother, and he doesn't tell them where it comes from. Now, I'm going to stop the lesson here because I've studied this portion about Samson taking the honey out of the carcass. And many commentators believe that when he took the honey out of the carcass, that because it was a dead bone, that he was defiled with the Nazarite vow. He defiled the Nazarite vow because he touched something that was touching the carcass. It doesn't say he touched the actual bones, but he touched the honey. But because the hive was attached to the bones of the lion, that it was defiled. But I've read several times Numbers chapter 6. And in Numbers chapter 6, specifically, it does not say the dead body of an animal. It talks about the dead body of a person. He says in Numbers chapter 6 concerning the Nazarite vow, you're not supposed to become defiled by a dead body. And when it says a dead body, then it explains a little further, and it says your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, or if a person were to die and fall upon you, then you're defiled. But it's only talking about a person, not an animal. If it was an animal, it would have said so. But it doesn't say that in Numbers chapter 6. God did not say anything about an animal's dead body. So we're going to continue on in chapter 14 in verse 10 next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.